when you're almost a herd. I'm a real nerd. People say I'm a fool, but they never got the news that I'm a wild one. Oh yeah, I'm a wild one. You better turn it up, better keep the channel down, cause you're watching Wild Mike and his real wild child. Oh yeah, I'm a wild one. You better turn it up, better keep the channel down, cause you're watching Wild Mike and his real wild child.
Howdy, folks. This is Wild Mike here. And yeah, Darren, I only brought you up because you put that in the private chat, so I figured that must have been you.
Hi, Bob.
Break it down, niggas.
Yeah.
So, how are you guys doing? Right now, I'm posting stuff to the eBay store, trying to make as much money for the holidays as possible.
So we were kind of talking real quick backstage. That when they, by the way, Eli said hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
So after, I think it was Eli who told me about Rob Reiner. Was it you?
I never mentioned Rob.
Oh, somebody did to me. I thought it was either you or Mike. Anyway, so I guess he left X, went on Blue Sky, which you have an account there, right?
Yeah. I do.
Of course he does.
Yeah. So I guess he got on there, went on a very couple of days of ranting, and some people commented, and they're like, kind of calm down. And he lost his mind and said, "Oh, great, MAGA's infected Blue Sky. This is racist." I'm like, well, and then the next one was, but the next one he did, because I saw it in the news part, he said, I'm checking myself into a mental health facility tomorrow morning. Gonna be there for about 2 weeks. I'm like, well, I give the guy props for doing that.
Why?
Because it shows he needs to get, maybe some help. Maybe I definitely think he should be on some anti-anxiety meds. I think that would help him.
I think he should have just done it and not broadcasted that he did it.
Well, they got to have their sympathy.
Mm-hmm.
They got to have their pity party. Oh, I didn't even hear about it on here. Because I don't have Blue Sky. I'm not getting another. I got no reason to go over there. So I heard that Ellen DeGeneres and her wife's house in England after they moved, flooded within a week of them getting there. I was like, fuck, talk about bad timing.
A lot of people's houses flooded.
Flooding, just like a poor person's house.
Well, I don't think nature cares if you're rich or poor.
Actually, it kind of does, because most of the floods around here happen in the floodplain, and that's where all the cheap housing is. That's that was the background for my comment, because people here, they live in the floodplain because the land's cheap there, but there's no insurance that'll cover floods, so they just take their chances, and come spring.
One of the best things to be
Not necessarily true, because the Garden District was flooded in New Orleans, and that's the rich neighborhood.
The entire of New Orleans is below sea level.
Yep.
The quarter was dry as a bone.
Yeah, the entire
that's the lowest part of the city.
Is below sea level, and it's right next to the Gulf of Mexico. Anybody who lives in New
next to
Orleans,
Mississippi. I used to live in New Orleans.
New Orleans is a moron.
So, Darren, I wanted to
say that. Darren, only
like everybody who lives in Kansas is an idiot for tornadoes. Like everybody who lives in Florida is an idiot for hurricanes.
Hold on, Elihu.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that, because it's an exit for the Mississippi River. We need some sort of thing there. I mean, granted, a giant city is probably not the best idea, but for transportation and trade reasons, we'd probably need something there.
Oh, I'm sure there's something there, but anybody who would live in a city that's beneath sea level, right next to the Gulf of Mexico,
Yeah, that
isn't thinking it through.
Almost anywhere on the Gulf Coast is probably not a good idea for hurricanes.
I can imagine the flood insurance is a nightmare.
Generally speaking, we build cities where they're supposed to go. For example, New York, perfect place for a city. The harbor is nice and deep. There's not a lot of fog. It's deep right up until the point where you get to the island. Things like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, right. So New Orleans is a city that we're the only culture that I'm aware of that rebuilds cities on the same site after a city's been destroyed by natural disaster.
Not true. Look somewhere in the Middle East, Dubai,
well, I would say if you mean Americans,
it's true because it is true because what I said was this is the only country I'm aware of that rebuilds cities where they've been destroyed by natural disasters. So it is true because I wasn't aware of any when I said that.
Okay.
That seems kind of strange. Well, one of the things we can do is rebuild in those areas and then learn from it.
I mean, Sodom and Gomorrah weren't rebuilt, as an example.
Yeah, I'm gonna go rebuild something Yahweh destroyed. No, thank you.
Oh, no,
yeah, destroy people were rude. Yeah, some reason to excuse to destroy a city. You're rude to me. Okay, destroy them, smite them.
A little bit different than that.
Elihu, don't make me defend the Bible, please.
Why would you want to defend? Why would you want to defend that? It's like defending Lord of the Rings.
You're getting the story wrong.
I think we should put Elihu in time out for about 10 minutes.
Don't get me wrong. That is not a moralistic tale as far as I'm concerned, but it's still you're portraying it as incorrect.
Yeah.
Look at the history of the culture around there.
Well, okay, we get off that. If I can't bring up politics, let's not go into this.
Yeah. Let's. So
where's the Fallout shelter?
I'm gonna do that in a little bit. I started this listing beforehand, and then I realized my freaking PDF, or not my PDF, my text file with my preamble is gone for my eBay listings. I don't know if I erased it on accident or if I put it in another folder that I can't find. And when I did a name search for it, it's not showing up. So I gotta go to one of my old listings. And
I'm so fucking fabulous. I piss glitter and shit rainbows.
Yep.
Lovely. Selling cups that say that?
Well, I'm selling a cup that's so that I used. It's one of the CNA stream mugs.
Gotcha.
Here, I'll bring up the picture so you can see.
Hola, Mrs. Cardenas.
Hola, Mrs. Cardenas.
Hey, babe.
Everybody stand up when she enters the room.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We did that to a friend's wife one time.
She's the queen of the channel.
We did that to a friend's wife one time, and she looked at us with this worried, puzzled look, like she didn't get the reference or anything. Most women today in America wouldn't know how to, wouldn't know what to do in that situation anyway.
Yeah, all the meltdowns that I'm seeing. I saw, I'm like, it's pretty sad that some of these people are just determined to be miserable through the holidays.
Oh yeah.
But hey,
I'm not.
They're going to be alone. Hey, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this right now. Trust me. There have been plenty of parties and family gatherings where everybody is like hoping certain people don't show up. And when you get that call that they can't make it, it's like, yes.
What's funniest about that for me, NB, is I'm that person for a majority of my family.
Yeah. Most of I don't really talk to much of my extended family. There's really not much reason for me to get too involved with them other than what I do right now. Damn, I'm trying to find this.
Sanity. Good luck.
No, I'm trying to find something about because I think this is something. Well, maybe Darren knows this. So
Why?
during World War II, we were the 18th largest military in the world, and
Who says?
History.
That's the premise of your question, though.
No. We were that. No. I'm not asking a question.
Was that at the beginning of the war, or at the end of the war, or somewhere in the middle?
Right in the beginning.
Okay.
Because Roosevelt had been focused on the New Deal and had not been working on the industrial military complex. Now, he knew war was looming. He believed it, especially when Limbaugh came back after he tested the Messerschmitts, and he says, basically, he sees their arsenal and everything, and he's like, if Germany goes to war with Europe, I don't think that, he said, Europe, there isn't a country that can stand against Europe. And then he even said, I don't even think the United States, because we weren't the superpower back then.
So I'm not hearing a question.
No, there's no question. I was going into a story there. Okay. So he goes and talks to like Chrysler, Ford, and DuPont to make war machines. And they're like, no, you screwed us over, buddy, after we got you elected. Well, then, of course, December 7th happens. And one of the problems is they bring those guys in and they're all in on it, but they've got to figure out how to make all this stuff. Now, DuPont can do it just fine because he's making the ammunition. But one of the biggest problems is because our Navy is, already been decimated. But it wasn't as strong as it was. So, and I was trying to look this damn guy's name up.
It wasn't decimated. It was reduced by greater than 10%. So,
yeah, thank you.
Our armed forces were after World War I were basically put into remission. I mean, we went into World War II, for example, with submarines from World War I, S-class and stuff like that. So I mean, it was we were in our tanks were not superior to the German tanks. What's his name?
We didn't get a tactical advantage.
Patton found that out in the Africa Corps.
Because the M3 tank that was manufactured, it couldn't handle the German tank, and then they created the M4, which is known as the Sherman. But one of the biggest problems was building the Navy ships we needed. We had the people to volunteer, we just didn't have the ships. And so I was trying to find the guy's name because he's in here in this 3-part series, but I'm drawing a blank on him. And he goes to see Henry Ford, and he's like, asks for his secret on how he's able to build his cars the way he does. And he shows them the assembly line. And in the old days, a ship was built from the ground up. And then he figured out how to do this. And with his streamline, he dropped like a whole fucking shit ton of Liberty ships in like a short amount of time.
Yeah. The Liberty ships are a fascinating story in and of themselves. They were built, you could build one inside of a week. But the problem with them initially was that they weren't made with the best, highest grade of steel available during the war, and they had a tendency to break in half halfway across the Atlantic. So there were a lot of sailors who were not, and they're not Navy sailors, we're talking about civilian sailors, who were not too keen on making that trip, at least initially, and they eventually figured out what the flaw was, and then they retrofitted all the ones that had survived with basically super strong reinforcement welds on the spine, because the steel tended to crack in colder temperatures, and you're going across the North Atlantic, so you're going to have cold water. So there are a couple of Liberty ships still in operation today. They're just basically big trucks that go across the water, and the legend is that when Hitler found out that the United States could build build one inside of a week. He said, we just lost the war because we can't sink them fast enough. It's a legend, though. Nobody knows if that's true, but that's the legend.
No, I doubt that's true. But we were able to start because we were able to pump the ships out so fast. We were able to have replacements. One of the biggest problems we ran into was when Boeing came back, and he's trying to build planes for the military, and they keep modifying it, changing this, changing that, and he's like, I can't build a freaking plane. He's frustrated, but he doesn't know what to do. And he ends up really going and asking for a trade secret from Ford. And he told Ford, we make a baseline here, and then the modifications are done at another department. And that's what he told the generals. He's like, I'm going to make one plane, and then we take it over to the modification department.
Right.
He's like, I can make the same plane, and we can make modifications to them as they're over there. And the generals agreed because it made total sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the weapons we entered World War II with, we were pretty pathetic. But then, once the machine of the American economy got involved and got revved up, then it was just, we had to leapfrog the Germans, one of the most industrious peoples of the 20th century, right? So, for example, just looking at submarine technology, the U-boat was state of the art in the beginning of the war. We had nothing. They had nothing. We had nothing like it. We matched it with the fleet boat, or actually, we leapfrogged it with the fleet submarines, the Baleo, Gato, and Tench classes. But then the Germans also had the ability to leapfrog those vessels with the Type 21 U-boat, but they weren't able to launch as many, because by that time they're just getting their nose so bloodied they couldn't produce them as quickly enough. But I mean, the Type 21 U-boat was what every modern submarine after that was based on. It was that much. It was that advanced. But yeah.
Oh, the name of the guy who got the Simulon thing. I was trying to remember his name. It was Kaiser, the guy who eventually created Kaiser Permanente for his workers.
The guy with the pointy helmet.
No, not that Kaiser.
The second guy you fight in Punch Out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But the good
The
thing
one that looks
was,
like Jake Paul.
well, one of the things was the reason why they wouldn't help Roosevelt, is because they brought him in thinking he was going to be an elite, one of their own, somebody they'd have, like access to like they normally have with those people. No, Roosevelt 180'd them, went after the banks, fucking made JP Morgan villainized, villainized DuPont, which called him the Merchant of Death, which because of what he saw because of his family in the First World War. That really would stung him.
Yeah.
And I think Chrysler was the other one he went after. And they went after Boeing because of Boeing reputation was totally slashed because of the secret deal he made to take the monopoly of the airmail.
Right.
Yeah, and that was the secret deal, and it got brought up. So, basically, Roosevelt was giving them somebody he's like, hey, these are the guys who caused the problem.
Yeah.
Now, was it only them? No. But yes, if you're gonna go after someone, you go at the people at the top. And then JP Morgan had its banks broke up. Basically it was the start of the monopoly breakups. And, these guys were used to doing what they wanted. They didn't like being told how to run their businesses because this was a whole new concept.
Well, when you were talking about boats earlier, maybe we should have Kinder start designing the boats because look at the size of that gun for that boat.
Yeah, I can imagine trying to fire that thing and basically capsizing the whole thing.
Oops.
So basically, all of them told Roosevelt, "Go to hell." He's like, "We're not at war with Europe." Everybody kind of felt safe with the fact that we had the two oceans. And well, then reality hit with December 7th. And then here's the thing. This one hit JP Morgan Jr. very personally because he had loaned money to Japan years ago, and it was supposed to help stimulate the economy and get the Japan economy out. And looks like they were but he didn't know where the money was going. It wasn't like we had those kind of things back then. Once they gave them the money, they had the money. And looks like they used it to, work on their military industrial complex. They started invading Indochina. And then after December 7th, he was just like, they used my money to bomb my own people. He didn't say that, but you could definitely figure that was probably what he was thinking.
LDG. I thought I smelled dandruff shampoo. How are you?
Yeah. Good morning, blind son of a bitches. The hell?
No, I saw that you were there, but I just didn't want to say anything at the moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Rude son of a bitches.
Good looking rude son of a bitches.
Sons of
What's
bitches.
happening? Sons of bitches. That's right.
Sons of bitches.
Yeah.
Sons of bitches.
How'd you know my mom, dude? My mom's a bitch. How'd you know her?
Or my favorite variation, some bitch.
Some bitch.
Some bitch. Made famous by Jackie Gleason.
No, just started my day early today. And then I got a nice, lovely friend come by, and y'all know him, Chris Knight.
Yeah.
And,
I remember him.
Yeah.
When you said nice friend come by, I figured you had to pay her by the hour.
Very funny. That's a voice of experience if I ever heard it. But he came by and wanted me to help him fix his computer and.
LDG, I've openly admitted I'm a bisexual. Half the sex I get, I buy.
I've heard that one.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah,
I haven't heard it in a while, but I've heard that one.
That's like a sexual dad joke.
Yeah.
I'm a dad.
Which is a contradiction which is a contradiction in terms, but okay.
I remember that movie, The New Kid, where he's in the prison, and he's like, I'm in high school. He goes, man, high school's just like prison. The sex you want, you ain't getting. The sex you're getting, you don't want. Okay, wow. I guess that wasn't funny for you guys.
Sorry.
I watched the first episode of Dune Prophecy.
I haven't got a chance to watch that yet.
I've only watched the first episode. I got the second one I watched. Did you enjoy the first Dune, the two-part Dune movies?
I haven't seen part 2 yet.
Okay,
I
well,
haven't seen either of the new ones because I just haven't had the time or the.
Okay, you're not going to. Okay, this is set 10,000 years before Paul Atreides. This is about 100 years after the Machine Wars, and then
You're putting me to sleep.
It's kind of the.
You're putting me to sleep.
So it's a prequel.
Okay,
I guess you could call it a prequel if you're talking 10,000 years in the past.
Well, hold on. Is it based on like the Kevin J. Anderson books, or
yes?
What
it is based on Kevin J. Anderson books.
Okay, because those I've read some of.
Yeah, it's based on the Bene Gesserit. The whole thing is revolved around the Bene Gesserits, mainly.
Okay.
Their beginning of their influence throughout the galaxy. And I mean, if you're not into political sci-fi dramas, you're going to find it boring as hell, folks. I'm going to tell you, because if you need to understand, Doom is political. It's all about backstabbing and somebody's going to betray you and all that kind of fun stuff. Everybody's got a motive. kind of like House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, yes, it is predominantly women-centric. Of course it would be. It's the Bene Gesserits.
Duh. Like having a show about ballerinas, but all you have is guys. I'm like, what the fuck? It's not continuity with that.
But yeah, it was real good first episode. And no, it's kind of nice that it's so far. Now it does mention how long it is before Paul Atreides' birth, but that's really it. Other than that, it's automatically assumed if you're watching this, you know who Paul Atreides is. More.
Yeah, it's on Prime, right?
Max.
Max. Oh yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Max.
Okay, I don't have to watch it on my computer. I can watch it on my TV. I've just been finishing up. I finally finished Star Trek Prodigy.
Yeah, did you enjoy it?
I thought it was cute. It was funny. It was okay. A couple episodes were stupid, but yeah, I know. A couple episodes were stupid, but I thought this is actually okay. It's pretty good.
I liked it.
Well, like
My
I
son
said,
didn't like it as much as I did, but he liked it too.
I didn't watch it, but I said it's a kid's show. I'm just not interested. My kids are too old for that, and I'm just not that interested.
It's definitely a kid's show, but if you're a fan of Star Trek, it references a lot of past Trek.
I don't want
especially the Borg episode. The Borg ship.
You talking about Lower Decks?
No, I'm talking
Prodigy.
about Star Trek Prodigy.
Oh,
I don't need to reference every episode to a.
No, it doesn't do that. It doesn't do that like Lower Decks.
Not like that. Okay, we're talking about like they'll bring back a type of alien that hasn't been seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Or they'll mention, cultures. Like there's a Ferengi at one point, and they start talking about the culture of the Ferengi, not necessarily referencing, oh, you remember this in this episode? It's more of, this is part of our culture. This is why we do stuff.
Right.
It's probably handled a little bit better than in Lower Decks, even though I still like Lower Decks as well.
Lower Decks was more that Adult Swim thing, and I was never a fan of I wasn't a fan of Adult Swim.
See, I grew up with Adult Swim, so I enjoy it.
Nah.
Did you say you grew up? What?
You grew up on Adult Swim.
Physically, not necessarily.
He didn't grow up.
Now, I don't care for any animated Star Trek. I've never cared for the animated series or any attempts at animation or comic books or anything. To me, Star Trek is a live action production, and that's what I pay attention to. Everything else is side hustle.
Anybody heard anything about Wicked?
I heard that the actresses keep holding each other's hands.
Who was watching it on? We talked about it briefly on one of the not a CNA streams that I did earlier this week, and I can't remember because Caddy knew a lot more about Wicked than I did.
Oh, of course, she's into plays. That would make sense. Yeah, my daughter got to see Wicked in the play, and she absolutely loved it. I don't know if she got a chance to go see it or not. I'm not gonna go see it. I really don't have an interest, but also the fact I have yet to really see. I'm trying to think of the last time I saw a play musical adaptation brought to the what's the word I'm looking for? Brought to the screen and really kind of translate over. For me, I don't know. The play is just different. It's a different experience.
Yeah. There's some things also that work so much better, I think, in a live action play than in a film. For example, Cats. right? When Cats came out in the mid '80s, it blew up the whole scene. Cats was this cultural thing, particularly in big cities like New York, where Saturday Night Live referenced Cats all the time, and always fondly, like it's this big attraction. People went to New York to see Cats.
That was like
skip ahead, skip ahead 40 years, and the movie comes out, and the music is unfamiliar, and of course now we have the internet, so a lot more people are aware of these things called furries, and suddenly it's this awful piece of film work, that nobody wants to go see. I mean, I think if the time to make a Cats movie was back in the 80s, but they were still making a lot of money off the live performances, so why would they make a movie, right?
Maybe early 2000s.
Okay, one of the things that reminds me of when I think of Cats, has anyone ever seen the Kevin Smith movie Jersey Girl?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, there's a part where his daughter is doing the school is doing this play thing where they do segments of plays from with their parents, and almost every single one of the things chosen by the parents was the song Memories by Cats, from Cats. Right. And that was one of the big jokes, is that everyone is doing Cats and his daughter is doing Sweeney Todd. Which, if you know anything about, my daughter, it's the same thing. She would have done something by Sweeney Todd, not Cats.
I love that song, My Friend's Best.
I mean, when you went to New York, at that point in the 80s, the Broadway shows were a huge draw. I mean, you could either see Cats, of course, or you could also see any Andrew. I mean, they had two Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals running concurrently. You had Les Miserables and you had Phantom of the Opera, and there were people.
I would have loved to have seen Phantom of the Opera on, and I saw Jekyll and Hyde, and it was just awesome.
Yeah.
I saw that back in the early 2000s, I think. No, 90s.
The big rave about Cats on Broadway is they decorated the theater like an alleyway with trash cans and placed trash everywhere. It was an immersive experience in the theater.
Yeah.
In other words, giving you. Go ahead. Yeah, in other words, giving you a more real feel experience.
That's what the big draw about Cats was.
Yeah, it was very immersive, and they did things with the lighting that you just couldn't, you couldn't do it in a movie. It was and of course, you're looking at there's some distance between you and the actors, so their makeup was designed to look at its best at a distance. Right? I'm sure if you saw the actors up close, you'd be like, "What the heck is this?" But the makeup was designed to exaggerate their expressions so that you could get those expressions all the way in the back row, and like I said, my mom went to see Cats in Chicago, and she came back, and that's all she talked about for like a week. Was what a great fun experience it was, and how immersive it was, better than any movie. So that's probably why they didn't come out with a movie sooner. They waited until it had kind of left the zeitgeist of America, and then they tried to do it with all these big stars. And I think that people have moved on. And our sensibilities have changed. People dressed up as animals talking about sex and stuff like that. That's not funny anymore. That's
that's a little creepy.
Yeah.
I hope your sister's doing better, Dandelion.
Hey, Dandelion. So I saw that the second, I guess, test review of the new Captain America movie did not go so well. That they want to do a few more reshoots, and they want to do some recuts. I'm like, they've already projected this movie has cost $500 million.
Yeah, it was supposed to come out this year, I think, or maybe last year, and now it's going to be like 2 years. I mean, the problem is it's supposed to air before Thunderbolts, and they might
hold on a second. LDG, did you do something different? Because
I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking about.
Are you messing with the back end? Because I was wondering why my little window was circular for a second.
Yeah. I was just I put us on circular real quick.
Oh, okay. It was just
We're back.
confusing me. And I'm definitely glad about that, Dandelion.
How are you?
Good.
You web searching.
Anyway, where were we
there
about the movie? Yeah, it's been delayed, reshot.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
they called it reshoots, but they shot like 3/4 of the movie over.
Right. And I mean, you can't tell me that story about a president who turns into a big red monster wasn't some sort of, symbolic thing. And after the election, they're like, oh shit, if this, and so I can totally imagine that they're gonna.
I didn't even make that comparison, but yeah, I can see where you're going there.
Yeah. So I mean, and first of all, Red Hulk is just a terrible character anyway. The guy who created Red Hulk, Jeff Loeb, said, that, and this is like a year before Red Hulk debuted. He says, "Red Hulk is what you do when you have no imagination." And part of the reason why the Red Hulk thing became a thing was because Kenneth Johnson, the showrunner of the old Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno show, thought that the Hulk's skin color should be red because red is the symbol of rage. And he calls up Stan Lee and says, why is he green? I want to make him red. And Stan Lee said, well, if you make him red, he's not the Hulk. That's one of his signature characteristics. So, so Kenneth Johnson lost that battle, but he always thought that the Hulk should be red. Green is the color of envy, not the color of rage and stuff. And part of the reason, of course, was that Kenneth Johnson was a little bit mistaken. The Hulk has his transformation mechanism has changed many times over the years, and the most famous version is when he gets stressed, right? But in the TV show, because they hammered home in the opening credits that whole anger is the trigger thing. Yeah, it's one of the triggers. For example,
he sounds pretty stupid because I would say rage would represent fire, and fire is yellow, not red.
Right. But anyway, so there was this idea. What if we made it? What if we made a red
Yellow
Hulk?
Would be funny.
And so when the Red Hulk debuted, it was a mystery box. Nobody knew who the Red Hulk was, and the Red Hulk seemed to know everything about the Hulk and seemed to know everything about the Hulk's allies and things like that. And had he was intelligent, could talk, and could use weapons, and was an expert at weapons and things like that. In addition to just smashing shit, and they teased you with red herrings that maybe it's Doc Samson, maybe it's Glenn Talbot. Turns out it was General Thunderbolt Ross, and that was one of the big mistakes of the character, was that Ross was a great villain for the Hulk on his own. He didn't need to be able to physically challenge the Hulk. He was basically Hitler in the comics. And so once they revealed it and everybody was like, oh well, gee, it's General Ross, ho hum, they then cured Ross of being the Red Hulk, but then created another Red Hulk that looked exactly the same as the first one, but he was somebody else. And they created an original character for that new Red Hulk. So I mean, they're basing this movie's villain off of one of the most failed attempts at creating a new villainous character, which really wasn't a new character. It was just a modification of an existing character.
Wasn't the Red Hulk like the unstable way of doing it? Yeah, you're more powerful, but you're basically burning yourself out if you get too angry.
The Hulk's thing is okay. So obviously, when the regular Hulk, the more stressed he becomes, the stronger and physically invulnerable he becomes, right? So, but with the Red Hulk, he starts out at much stronger than the Green Hulk, but the more angry he gets, the hotter his body generates heat, because the Red Hulk was created by a combination of gamma rays and cosmic rays, the radiation that created the Fantastic Four. So that's why he's different and inherently possibly more dangerous, because that heat, is he's like a living nuke at some point. But it just was a dumb idea, and yeah, I'm not keen on Marvel has so many great iconic classic characters they could be doing instead of more recent ones that are not so great.
Why do they keep trying to relaunch?
As long as they didn't turn him
Girl?
into a freaking Skittle, man. I'm glad we're not seeing purple Hulks and,
Well,
God.
that's another thing. I was
Orange
afraid that
Hulks
Marvel was going to. Yeah, I was afraid that Marvel was going to do that. They were going to have this whole spectrum of Hulks.
They did that with Kryptonite.
They did that with,
there's always been the Hulk archetype in comic books now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Green Lantern.
there was a purple version of the Hulk, but it was in a different medium or different company's comic.
Right. But again, DC Comics, they created, like, you have the Green Lantern Corps, then they created the Sinestro Corps where all their rings and things were yellow, and then they created a whole spectrum of different corps that all had different abilities with their rings and things, and that was interesting to a point, but there's no longevity there. Yeah, it was the emotional spectrum. Yeah, and yes, it was interesting, but it was a very short-term idea. You can't build longevity on that, and ultimately what it did was it diluted their whole Green Lantern brand when they did it. It's kind of like what they did with Shazam too. They had to have a huge expansive. They had to have a huge expansive family of characters that derive their powers from the wizard Shazam, and of course each one had to be a different ethnicity and have a different colored outfit. And so not only do you have red and blue outfits, now you got purple and green outfits and white outfits and things like that. It's just they spread it too far.
Shazam is an acronym. Captain Marvel was Captain Marvel.
I agree, but ever since Marvel got bought by Disney, Disney's legal department told the DC, you can no longer use the name Captain Marvel. That's ours. And there used to be a gentleman's agreement between DC and Marvel where
you put Shazam there, and then you could call him Captain Marvel in there.
Yeah, right. You couldn't say Captain Marvel on the cover. It could only say, so Shazam was what they called the comics that he appeared in. But now they don't really have a name for the character. Nobody knows what to call him. And so Shazam is really the only word. I mean, I prefer Captain Marvel too, but of course now you've got the Brie Larson character, which is yet another permutation of the name Captain Marvel, and people get confused, and it's just
Marvel. You mean the original Marvel?
Well, he wasn't the original, but yeah.
No, I mean Marvel. There was Marvel. I mean, how many Captain Marvels have there been?
Well, let's see. There's been a bunch. There was the original, Marvel, but then there was his son, Janice Marvel, which is my personal favorite. Then you had Monica Rambeau as the '80s Captain Marvel, who was a black woman that had just took the name because it was available, and she had.
That's the one I grew up with.
Yeah, and that's the one I like. I like Monica Rambeau. I think she had a really great costume. She was kind of like the Avengers version of Storm when it came to her look.
Oh, nice!
Very similar cape and stuff. Yeah. And then you have now they decided to take the Carol Danvers character and change her from Miss Marvel to Captain Marvel, and then they made her a bitch, and that was
didn't Rogue the version suck Captain Marvel dry or some shit.
Yeah, that was how they actually got Carol Danvers out of the picture for most of the '80s. They retired the character by having her fight Rogue, and Rogue, quote, permanently absorbed her powers, leaving her comatose without her memory. So Rogue for most of the '80s had both the powers and memories of Ms. Marvel. And eventually Professor X was able to restore her memories with telepathy, but she didn't have any of the emotional connections to those memories. So she eventually left Earth and then became this cosmic character called, I'm not kidding, Binary.
Yeah. Which I thought the Binary
which represented Binary was a reference to stars. She got
I can understand a binary star.
Yeah. And then eventually she lost those powers, came back to Earth, and then something happened where all her Rogue lost her Ms. Marvel powers, and they went back into Carol Danvers, and then she came back to the Avengers, and she took the name Warbird because she was a female fighter pilot at one point. And then from Warbird, then she went back to Ms. Marvel, and then she became Captain Marvel. So she's been a mess.
Jeez.
Yeah, and then Monica Rambeau, they changed her name to Photon, which makes sense because her powers were always light based. But this is what her costume basically looked like back then.
That's not a bad looking costume. I mean,
I like the black and white.
let's see. The one I like is the one from earlier in the 80s where she had it wasn't a jerry curl or an afro, it was something in between. Let me see if I can find a picture in my repertoire. But she was actually the leader. This is what was weird. In the 80s, the leader of the X-Men was Storm for a while. Like we're talking like 5 or 6 years. And in the Avengers, Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, was the leader of the Avengers. And basically where like Cyclops sort of stepped down and became like an advisor position, and so did and over on the Avengers, Captain America stepped down and became more of an advisor as well. But yep, I got it right here.
I'll bring it up in a sec.
Yep. There we go. That was what she looked like in the 80s, and she had.
I remember her. I actually remember.
Yeah, that is the outfit I love. That is what I'm used to.
I remember that outfit.
Yeah. She's basically, I mean, the way her cape is all rounded, it reminded me of Storm. She was basically visually the equivalent of the Avengers version of Storm, but obviously her powers were all different.
I like her boots.
Yeah. I like those kind of boots too, the kind that have the puffs on them. But and her power set was
I can't
basically
see the screen, but does she have those stupid tear duct masks over her eyes?
No, she has a cowl.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. I always hated that when girls superheroes had those weird flame-looking eye coverings coming out from their face. Ugh.
Yeah, I definitely remember that. I definitely remember that character from that time.
Yeah, it's a mask. It's not a cowl.
She was in the Black Star and on her chest. Not too subtle there. But her powers were all energy based. She could transform into living forms of energy, including gamma rays. For example, one of the things that she was able to do is she was able to turn the Hulk back into Banner by basically flying through her while being gamma rays. And of course, when she was gamma rays, she would shift into a green color. It was kind of like a ghost, but then she could also blast people with whatever that energy was. So she was quite an effective superhero character for the Avengers, and I liked her. It didn't matter to me that she was black. It was just she had a great power set, had a distinctive look. Didn't care for her name very much, but I liked Photon a little bit better. But it is what it is. Eventually, you just ignore the name. But yeah,
I would love for one of my favorite superpowers is, and you don't see this very often, is those who have like the luck power, like extreme luck. You know what I mean?
Right.
And,
like Domino.
Somebody.
Yeah.
Domino.
What if you had somebody who had like a super freaking powerful luck factor, and then they get put into like the Fantastic Four situation where they're under an experiment, and then the best possible mutation happens, and now they're extra lucky, and now like something crazy powerful, whatever.
Okay, here's a character that I think DC should really start pushing, because he's designed. He was created many years ago, but and I got him up here. His name is Airwave.
Well, that sounds familiar.
I was going to say, please don't say Condiment King. Please don't say Condiment King.
And here's Condiment King was mustard. No, okay. So Airwave is the nephew of Hal Jordan, Green Lantern. What is his power? He has the ability to transform into energy and then jump into your radio or television set and travel through the airwaves and come out in somebody else's home. So here's this. This is a superhero that literally has the ability to reach into the internet and punch people.
This would actually be a great character for the modern era. He'd be able to jump into cell phones.
Yep, exactly. Because we've got so many wireless devices now that he can travel on wireless signals. So yes, he can. If he doesn't like what you're saying on the computer, he can literally jump into the internet connection, travel to where you are, rematerialize in your home, and punch you in the face.
He could ring every phone on the planet at the same time. Yeah, I like this guy.
Yeah, actually, this guy sounds pretty fucking cool for this era.
Sounds like Lawnmower Man, ringing every phone on the planet.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
Lawnmower Man rang every phone on the planet. It's already been done.
He's like got the ability we've all wanted to have. Just reach through and go stab.
He like knows everybody's internet history. Oh God, that's scary. This guy's oh shit. He's literally the internet archive. Oh my God, the human internet archive.
Actually, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I can see why you'd want him, because actually, I think he would be very relatable in current day.
But does he need a conduit, or can he just jump onto? Because the waves are going around no
I'll
matter
be right
what.
back.
Or
I got to
does he need to go
real quick.
into the TV or into
They would
the
show
device?
him. It would show him literally like leaping into the device. So if there's a radio,
Like Ghost Dad. He
Mhm.
fucking Ghost Dad. Okay.
That's what I said, LDG.
Yes, I know that's what you said. I'm agreeing with you. Stop complaining. Yes. Okay. Well, I figured he could just ride the wave, like just literally disappear, and just because his wave's going everywhere.
Actually, he's the best escape artist right there.
Is it kind of like the Matrix?
Yeah, I was thinking the
when they
same
were coming
thing.
in out of the. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah.
No, that actually sounds like a cool character. For this day and age, yeah, he'd be relevant.
Doesn't Livewire already do that?
Livewire was created many years
Livewire
later and was a cartoon villain.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're talking about the guy who's like electrified. He goes across
Oh, it was
power
a chick.
lines.
She was
Chick?
she
Oh.
was she debuted on the Superman animated series.
Because waves are different than electricity, I would say.
Right.
Oh, for crying
But yeah,
out loud.
Airwave came out.
We're not getting
Airwave came
that,
out. Airwave came out in the 1960s when transistor radios and things were still popular. People would have little transistor radios in their pocket. And he was able to travel on that, or television. But now we have internet. I mean, he was created to be able to travel on wireless signals before we had wireless internet. So today, they should be dusting him off and doing something with him.
Maybe you should send a letter to him.
A letter, huh?
Did anybody ever get like the tardigrade powers where they could just like blip into space wherever the hell they want to blip to?
No.
Most
All right,
teleporting
sorry,
characters
I'm back.
do that.
I was listening in. One thing I think is really funny is what you just said, NB, because it literally made me laugh out loud. For a character who travels on wireless signals, you want Darren to send a letter.
That was the point of the joke.
Okay, I didn't
Sure
know.
it
I
was.
honestly thought you were not being funny
Sure it
on that.
was.
And I'm just like,
Why do you think I said a letter?
Because you're dumb.
Because you're old.
Which
No,
letter?
you
W.
guys just said
Which
it
letter?
for
Which letter? W, F, C, Z, L.
Silence, Elihu. You do not
Never.
contribute well.
But,
Never.
Back to the Livewire. I didn't realize she was actually made for the Superman animated show, but I do remember that she was voiced by was it Lori Petty?
Lori Petty, yeah.
And I always liked that character because of her voice in there, because I thought she brought a level of snark to the character that I appreciated for the Superman animated show.
Yeah. Well, the animated shows by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini actually contributed a whole bunch to DC Comics in general. For example, Harley Quinn was created in that cartoon, and we up until that point we never up until that point we hadn't had a regular Joker accomplice. He'd have a different accomplice in every story, for example, because the idea was he just went through girlfriends or henchmen, all the time. Mercy was another one. That was Lex Luthor's chauffeur, who was also his bodyguard. A lot of women characters. You had Livewire, obviously, and all of these characters eventually became so popular that they appeared in the comics as bona fide characters. Another one, I think.
Harley. Yeah, exactly, Darren. Harley Quinn was so popular that they were like, let's bring her into the comics. And she was very well accepted.
Yeah. And another one, I think, and this is not, I'm not 100% on this, but I think Roxy Rocket was also debuted in the cartoon and then became a character in the comics. But because she's so hypersexual, they kept her in. Basically, she was in the background, but never really emphasized.
Yeah,
Roxy Rocket. I'll never forget that cartoon.
Yeah, in the cartoon that she goes to face off against Batman instead of Superman.
Yeah,
and it's that episode where Superman is being Batman.
Yeah. She was actually in Metropolis because the other criminals in Gotham were picking the city clean because Batman was missing, and Superman, of course, just handily. Yeah, Superman just handily defeats her because her thing is she rides a rocket cycle. That's her gimmick. But in her debut episode in the Batman animated series, it was shocking what they got away with. She literally has an orgasm in that episode because of the danger, and she's like, yes, and it's like, what? Wow, are the kids getting this? I hope not.
No, I don't think we did back then.
Oh, there was a thing I saw on YouTube earlier this week. It was like just a montage of all the Animaniacs jokes that went was under the radar stuff. Right. Like, how did the censors let them get away with some of the stuff, especially the fingerprints joke?
Yeah, you're not saving these streams after they're done, right?
I don't, but they're on YouTube. Why?
All right. I have the scene in question.
Oh.
This is it right here.
Don't worry, I'm a small enough channel. Most I'll get is a content ID.
Okay, not a problem. So Batman and Roxy Rocket are on her rocket cycle. They're sort of grappling, and they're about to hit a cliff and crash, and Batman won't let her change course, and it's just as soon as it's up, we'll play it.
All right, there we go.
Better make your move.
I thought you enjoyed Risk.
Oh, baby, you're the best. The ultimate thrill, the final stunt. Me and you. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious what was going on there to an adult. It's like she's straddling a rocket, riding it like it's a Sibian. It's like,
Hey, I wanted to feel the power of God between my legs before I died.
Yeah, exactly.
What was it in Justice League, the animated series? The Question, and who was he in a relationship with? I'm drawing.
That was Justice
Black
League
Canary.
and no, it was not Black Canary. It was the Huntress.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, and I did like that storyline.
That was one of those things where the chemistry worked so well in the cartoon that people demanded like a comic book with the two of them in there, and DC Comics, and I don't know what is wrong with the comic book industry over the last 20 years, but every time they seem that something with their characters gets popular in a cartoon or something, they will refuse to do it and actually do the opposite in the comic, just to assert their dominance over the medium. So people were saying, look, this romance with Question and Huntress was really cute. Let's have that in the comics. Their response to that was to kill off the Question and replace him with a lesbian character named Montoya, who was a Gotham City police officer. And it's like, no, it doesn't work, But
it was kind of like, come on, it was something we all enjoyed. We wanted to see more of it. The chemistry worked between them. It was kind of funny how, he's so paranoid. She just finds him intriguing. While everybody else thinks he's nuts, she's actually just enjoying and thrilled by him, which is not something he's normally used to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the question was, and what was interesting about the question, of course, was that there's a more popular or more known version of him called Rorschach from the Watchmen. Rorschach was Rorschach was basically a parody or an homage, some would say, to the question. But
I thought so. I can see the similarities.
Yeah, but Rorschach, of course, was portrayed as insane. So, you know, that's the difference. Whereas Question is not insane. He's actually hyper sane. He's you know, he's got this. He's so analytical. Yeah. Well, no, in the cartoon they made him a conspiracy theorist, which was a way of compromising the original Question premise with the more popular Rorschach idea. So they kind of straddled both versions of the character in the comic, and I think that was probably the way to go. But yeah, that scene where Question figures out that Luthor is you know, basically trying to destroy Superman, he decides he's going to murder Lex Luthor, was one of the more, and again, another shocking moment from that cartoon where you know you're getting something that you're not expecting from a superhero cartoon.
What did he say in that when he was confronting him? He goes, "I'm a right-wing conspiracy lunatic. Everybody knows that."
No, he never said right-wing. He said, "I'm a known
I know that.
crackpot."
I'm just threw that in there for fun.
Yeah, he said, "I'm a known crackpot. You know, my reputation's already set, but Superman's will survive." And you know that's why he took it upon himself to kill Luthor so that Superman wouldn't have to, because it was Superman killing Lex Luthor in an alternate reality that caused the Justice Lords to occur.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, Question, he's like, everybody already knows I'm a crackpot nut job conspiracy there. It's just like nobody's gonna question why I did it. I know, pun intended. But it's like you can't he's like, you're not tarnishing Superman's.
Yeah. He was essentially sacrificing himself for Superman's reputation. But the thing, of course, that happens is that, unbeknownst to Question, Brainiac and Luthor have merged into a new being that's and he just gets his butt stomped. You know, Lex Luthor Brainiac, you know, basically stomps a mud hole in his ass, and you know, so at least he tried, right? But
Rorschach tried. I mean, and he flat out, you know, he's like, I'm not compromising my principles.
Yeah, Rorschach is funny. Yeah, it's funny because Rorschach was. Alan Moore wanted people to think Rorschach was a monster, but by the end of the story, he almost becomes the hero of the story. And when you ask people who have seen Watchmen, the movie, which is a decent enough adaptation, they all come away thinking that Rorschach was the best character in that show. And it's hard to argue with them because they gave him a lot of moments from the Watchmen story in the movie that solidified who he was. Yeah.
Don't seem to
I think because a lot of people didn't realize he was based on the Question. I think a lot of people saw Batman.
No, I knew he was based on the Question.
Because it was he was uncompromising with his morals.
There's the Question.
Yeah, a lot of people also thought of like Rorschach, and this is a little bit of a mistake, but a lot of people thought of Rorschach and Night Owl as being two sides of the Batman coin.
Yeah.
Obviously, Night Owl was based on a character called the Blue Beetle, who had a beetle ship that would fly around, and he would, but I mean, in the movie,
the Ted Cord version of the Beetle.
Who had the beetle ship, right? And so when you look at Night Owl, somebody who's not aware of Blue Beetle is going to see, oh, is this a Batman, parody? And he kind of looks like it, and he has the cape and a cowl and all that kind of stuff, and has all the gadgets, but then Rorschach has the grit,
One of my personal favorite scenes. None of you seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
Yeah, one of the most horrifying scenes in the comic is that scene where he dumps grease on the other inmate's head, and in the movie they don't hold back.
Yeah.
That was hard to watch because I knew it was coming, and I'm like, I don't want to see this, but it's Zack Snyder, he's going to show it to you. And to die that way is horrible. I mean, basically your brain gets cooked, and you
They
can't
kind of
stop
toned
the-
down that scene
Yeah,
in the cartoon. In the cartoon part 2, they toned down the oil scene.
Never seen the cartoon, don't care. But
It just got released a couple of days ago.
Yeah, don't care. But the movie, I mean, obviously effects, right? Obviously it wasn't hot oil, but I mean, the fact that oil is on you, you can't really rinse it off with water very well, and the heat transfer is just, and the guy, yeah, your skin's melting. It's cooking your brain. It reminded me a little bit, or I should say, when they killed on Game of Thrones, when what's her face's brother, the Targaryen guy, when Khal Drogo drops,
the crown on it. Yeah.
Pours molten gold on his head to kill him. That's the same idea, except he died much quicker than the inmate. The inmate, I think, took like 24 hours to die, which is,
They probably had him hopped up on meds, induced coma.
Right. And that's what causes the prison riot, But, yeah.
I like how Rorschach goes in there and he's like, "Give me back my face."
Yeah. Well, the idea behind Rorschach is interesting also, is the idea that he spent so much time fighting crime and being in the underworld that he began to sort of absorb their characteristics. And he there was a point where he let the villains he fought live, but after a while he just started eliminating them because society wouldn't punish them anymore. And
that was early in his career. That was when he was talking to the therapist, right?
Well, yeah, he talks about the Blair Roach case where he finds, and this is enacted in the movie, where he finds a child killer who's been killing kids and feeding, or at least one kid, and feeding the remains to his dogs, and he kills the dogs, and then it's such a great scene because Jackie Earle Haley he has to convey emotion with his face covered by this mask, and so he has to do it with body language, and as the murderer is begging for mercy and saying that he's not evil, he's just sick and that he needs help and this kind of stuff. And Rorschach is just trembling because of what he's hearing and the fact that he knows, this is going to work in this new society we're in. And he takes the meat cleaver and says, men get arrested, dogs get put down, and then he kills them, with like a murderer would, like a passionate, taking that cleaver to his head, dozens of times. And it's a gruesome scene, but you also understand what's happening. It was a really great piece of storytelling in that part of the movie.
Yeah, it really was. Well, also you look at how Rorschach grew up.
Yeah. Today, I think the equivalent today, I look at all these kids whose mothers are on OnlyFans and how they're being tormented in school and stuff, and I'm thinking, oh, you're creating Rorschachs, by doing this.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, one of the things I've seen on a lot of these social videos is, one thing is I can say kind of what I want, but my kids are old enough now and everything. But, if you're going to be, you got kids, it's one thing if you're going to be a stripper and it's, more private and, one thing, I understand that. But when you're going on OnlyFans and you're, posting it all over and it gets linked to like Pornhub, RedTube, and all those other things. Yeah. I mean, imagine being, I'm going to be honest because I'm not thinking that far ahead. Imagine being 50 something years old and having to talk about that with your kid then, because if you think everything's going to be the same as it was back then, no. They're going to be like, why did you do this? I mean, that was one thing I tried to...
The thing about it is that not only are kids finding out, but some of these OnlyFans moms are showing up to PTA meetings and picking up their kids from school with the advertisement for their OnlyFans printed on their car. So they're advertising. You know, it's
Well,
just
that's
just,
the first
you know,
great
yeah.
way to get bullied.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah,
And they,
oh, your mom's a little skank, slow or hot, huh?
yeah,
Hold on.
yeah.
I'm going to chime in a little bit because when I was in grade school, my best friend's mom was a stripper.
Yeah, so what? We're not talking about then.
Now,
That was then. This is now.
I know, but today with the
Nothing.
virtual medium and the internet, it's basically the same thing.
No, it's not.
Right.
Yes, it is.
No,
It's really not the same thing at all because
It's actually worse.
It's much worse because only adults could get into strip clubs and see that. They generally don't take pictures and things. But kids know how to navigate the internet way better than their folks in many cases. They're gonna find these pictures, and
they don't even need to advertise.
Right.
Well, to me, I have a aversion to blaming the parent for that kind of stuff, because
everybody gets to blame.
I mean, there was a point where when Caddy was a little kid and I was going through my custody battle, a friend of mine who worked part-time in the adult film industry was like, hey, we could get you a role in one of the films. It pays like $500 an hour. We don't have to use your real name.
Right.
But,
yeah.
And I almost took it, except I was worried that because I had to disclose all my income, I would have to disclose where I got that from, and my ex would use it against me in court, even though I didn't, it wasn't anything I did was not necessarily sexual.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but the whole thing is what I'm saying is you got.
Yeah, the kid's going to find out.
Not just their OnlyFans, but then, what they post on like their social medias, like X, Instagram, and I mean, it's just like, okay, I get why you're doing it, but, you might end up being like, maybe this wasn't the best idea to advertise. I mean, at least when you were, you used to have to run around the house to find you had to go sneak around your parents' room to find the porn, whether it be the magazines or the VHS tapes.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's easy to find. They know the internet better than adults.
I think it's funny you say that, they hid the porn because my brother and I found my stepfather's porn collection because he put it with all the regular VHS tapes.
Well, then he didn't hide it, did he?
No, I think he was trying to hide it.
He's trying to do one of those in plain sight things.
I think he forgot the fact that they had. I think he forgot the fact back that those were VHS tapes. They were packaged differently in a different type of case.
Yeah.
Well, these were just. They looked like for us. They looked like blank.
I don't know if all of them were, but yeah,
like VHS tapes.
In my area when we were growing up, where you found them? You would go out into the woods and you'd find somebody's old deer hunting stand in the winter after deer hunting season was over, and you'd always find porno mags in there. That's how we would find them.
Yep.
I can believe it.
I definitely remember finding those things back in the day.
Yeah. That was the only place a kid could find them, and you'd thank the hunters, right? Because now I know what a woman looks like with her clothes off.
That's just crazy.
Wow, you kids were poor. I had cable.
Well, we had cable.
Your parents had cable.
Yeah, and they didn't have the Playboy channel at that point yet.
That's okay. We just watched the dirty channel through the wavy lines.
Yeah.
I was going to thank you.
That opening scene from American Pie, that was very much part of my childhood. Where he's watching, he's like, "Oh, that's a boob. That's a boob."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember
You're
Duckman?
watching it. It's like, I think Roseanne did one of those once where he got into a fight with his dad or something. He goes, and he's at the thing, and he's like, "What are you doing, Dad?" He's like, "I'm sitting here drinking a movie. I'm sitting here drinking a beer, and I'm watching a dirty movie through all these lines." He goes, could just pay the $5, Dad. He goes, "Yeah, but then they know I'm watching a dirty movie."
There's that episode of Duckman where they woke up the next morning and Duckman is looking like he's on meth, staring at the frickin' scrambled porn channel. And he's like, "Duckman, what are you doing?" He goes, "I saw a boob for a microsecond. I want to see if it came back." Stay up all night watching that shit.
I remember Duckman. I'm just one more duck who works with a pig, lives with his ex-wife, 2 kids, 3 kids
His
on 2
ex-wife's
bodies,
sister.
and a comatose
Right.
mother-in-law who's got so much gas she's a fire hazard.
Sorry, not his ex-wife. It was his deceased wife's sister.
Yeah,
How was that? Wasn't that actor Jason Alexander?
Yep.
I wonder if that inspired. I wonder if that inspired Seinfeld at all.
I know. I love one of these where they were doing a thing, and it's like, "Sir, there's a UX executive on the line. He says this promo sucks. Well, I can kiss my feathered ass. I'm the star here."
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm checking to see if it was what came first, Duckman or Seinfeld, because I think they were either at the same time or
I was pretty young for
Seinfeld
Duckman.
was first.
Duckman was funny. I hadn't thought about that in a while.
First,
I remember that was back when USA had some good shit on its channel.
Oh,
all right. So Seinfeld started in '89 and went to '98. Duckman started in '94 and went to '97. So yeah, it was during the Seinfeld run.
Okay.
Seinfeld was in '89.
Yeah, '89 to '98.
That early? Shit. No way. Wow.
Yeah, way. Think about back when Night Court came out.
Yeah. Some of those sitcoms, they lasted a good long time. I mean, the average of a TV show in the 80s was 2 seasons, but some of them went way farther than that.
Yeah, one of the things about
and at least one of them won't end anytime soon.
Yeah.
Well,
I never could figure out Falcon Crest and Knots Landing. I could never figure out that shit. What? Who's still watching this? This show has been on forever.
I remember my babysitter telling me, she's like, "You can come talk to me anytime except when Knots Landing comes on."
Yeah.
Kind of Patty Selma says, anything until after MacGyver.
Yeah, Knots Landing was also, I think, a spin-off of another show, wasn't it? A spin-off of Dynasty or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was about some characters from another show that moved to a cul-de-sac called Knots Landing, and that's what it was about. But I don't remember what show it spun off from. But
spin-off of Dallas. Yeah. Thank you, Wikipedia.
Dallas.
Spin-off of Dallas.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that makes sense. Dallas was pretty big too. Of course, the whole
Who Shot
JR thing was a big deal, and of course, because it was network television that existed in a rubber band reality, you knew that nothing really was ever going to change. They wrapped up the whole Who Shot JR thing within the first 10 minutes of the episode, if I recall correctly. A lot of people were disappointed, but it got people talking at least, Meanwhile, in the 80s, you had in England, you had a series of instant coffee commercials that actually had like this drama in them about a couple. Are they going to get together? Aren't they? You guys ever hear about that? Yvette got me hip to this, where it was a series of coffee commercials that had these 2 actors, British actors in it, man and woman, who keep encountering each other. And I think the ad campaign lasted for like a year, and people it was on their national news. People were interested in what was going to happen to these 2 characters in commercials. It was weird.
Well, they must have good chemistry together.
Since I like numbers that either are divisible by 10 or divisible by 5 or both, because everything divisible by 10 is divisible by 5. Once I post this thing, I'll be at 525 listings. So I will go to the vault after that, after I post this one.
All right.
What are you going to do when you get to 666?
Doesn't matter, because as soon as someone buys something, it'll go back down.
It's not the point. You get the picture. You get the screenshot.
Well, I don't know if I have enough items to get to 666, but if I do, I'll post it to the socials. I've already made the joke on this live stream when I hit episode 222, when I said it was 1/3 evil.
You did nothing for 420.
I haven't hit 420 yet.
Hey, Elihu.
Yo.
Do you not look at the titles? I put the episode number in every title.
I'm pretty certain For All Mankind's going to get all 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on season. Yeah, we're going to be on season. But look, I thought last season would be Ed's. I just have a feeling if he's in this season, this is going to be his last season.
Well, it has to be. He's like in his 90s at this point.
Yeah, I think so. So it'll probably go on and be his daughter and grandson, which was, foreshadowed all the way back in the first season. In fact, I remember being like, why are we, I didn't even know these characters. They barely mentioned anything about these characters throughout the time. I'm like, why is this interesting? And then it was like, oh, they had Ronald D. Moore had a long-term plan.
I think they had a loose idea, not a full plan. I don't think it was.
No, I said they had a long-term plan. I didn't say they had a full plan.
Well, in that case, I agree with you, but I think it was much more loose than we think it was.
Oh, it's a long-term plan, not a full plan.
No, they had a long-term plan for the show, but of course, obviously, during the time they've been making it, you modify the plan as you're going.
Gotcha.
I mean, you know that, Darren.
A long-term plan usually means that you've thought it out well in advance. And
I think what I mean, okay, what I'm saying by that is they had their goals for each season already mapped out.
Gotcha.
Kind of like what Straczynski did with Babylon 5. He had things laid out. He had his vision. He had an out for every character just in case.
Yeah.
Kind of like what Seth MacFarlane did. He wrote season 2 complete before he even started filming season 1, and he did season 3 before he started filming season 2. Yeah.
Season 2 of what?
Orville. Yeah.
Okay. All right. No, I missed the Orville. I missed the Orville, but I missed the funny Orville. The season 3 was interesting and needed a neat experiment, but I prefer the dick and fart jokes.
I don't know. I liked Amanda. I really liked her character.
Seth has confirmed it is going to be a season 4. I'm like, okay, when?
You can confirm it all you want. I want to see a date.
Charlie Pride.
Which one was Amanda?
Amanda was Vincent Burke.
Ex-wife.
Oh, not Amanda. Sorry, Amanda was the woman. She that's another story. The one she never got to tell she was in love with, the one who threw her in.
Oh,
no, I'm sorry, Charlie Burke. I don't know why I said Amanda, but that's the one.
You like the bitchy lesbian. Okay, gotcha.
No, I understood why. I could understand why she would feel the way she does. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
she's a fucking lesbian.
I understood why she felt the way she does too. I still didn't like her.
Well, to each their own.
You enjoy those bitchy lesbians. Anyway.
What the hell is wrong with it now?
Compared to the nice princess lesbians?
I mean, the whole thing with one of the sad things about season 3 of Orville, though, was because because obviously Norm Macdonald had died. We didn't get any real material with Yaphet. It was all of his voice lines were pre-recorded. and such. So I mean, that was kind of an underlying sad current.
I need to
in the
correct you.
show.
I need to correct you, Darren. Seth MacFarlane
Okay, go
quoted
ahead.
saying, yeah, Seth MacFarlane said that all of Neil's lines were recorded before his death. They were not pre-recorded, inserted lines. They were all scripted.
That doesn't mean that's true. But I mean, yes, all of his lines were recorded prior to his death, but that doesn't mean they didn't change things.
For the season. He said he did not add or anything. He said all lines were recorded for season 3 before his death.
Yeah.
He did not have any pre-recorded lines for season 1 or season 2 in the mix.
Yep, a lot of those lines were repeated lines from previous seasons, and there's videos that show that. But anyway, that neither here nor there.
They had
In fact,
to do something, man.
In fact, yeah. Well, what they should have done was have Yaphet divide into two characters, and then one leaves the ship, the other one stays behind, and then you get Bill Burr to do that voice. That's what they should have done, and it could have happened off camera. It could have happened, whatever. But you keep the character going and keep him as integral as he had been in the previous two seasons. I mean, was there anything funnier than Bortus eating part of Yaphet and then Yaphet having to go in and get the piece?
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness. I mean, I was gagging when I watched that because I'm trying to think of this because they always made Yaphet look like there was dirt inside his blobbiness, like he was filthy, and but yeah, and then the whole thing with Isaac and Claire having a romantic relationship, funny on its face, but then in the third season it became serious, and I didn't like that it became a serious thing. But then also, I liked the idea that the allegiances changed. Suddenly the Mocklins are now an enemy, and the Kalon are allies. That was very strange, but also very Star Trek. I mean, so.
I think it was funniest when we talked about the Orville on my channel. It was Caddy and Quinn both loved Isaac. They thought he was the best character, and when they saw the episode where Claire and him hook up, they were like, "Oh my God, we love this so much."
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I do like the scene where he got his emotions and he's like all excited. He's like, "I've lost them now." And it's like he's got to reset himself completely, and then he forget everything. And he was willing to do that for her to have the emotion. And she realized, well, if that ain't love, then what is it?
Right.
Yeah. And I found that very emotional. I enjoyed the third season. I mean, I thought that the first season, the humor kind of got a little over the top at times. I like how the evolution of it became more organic, I thought.
Yeah. Well, there's some problems with the third season. In the first episode of the first season, they introduced this new hot rod shuttle that the Orville has. They make a point to show it, Malloy flying it, and how it can do rings around their other shuttles, and then they put it away and they never bring it out again in that season. So it's like, what was it? Was like there was.
Are you talking about the shuttle?
The whatever it was, the single man craft that Malloy was piloting. In the first episode, they never brought it back, and it was like they were clearly setting us up for this, and there was no payoff.
In one of the episodes, they did bring it back, the fighter.
I didn't see that at all. So I watched the whole thing. I didn't catch that, but if you say it's in there, I'll believe you. But I mean, I didn't see it.
Didn't they bring him in the third season?
One of the big battle scenes.
It was it was in the first. I mean, when they showed you the flashback of the Kalon War, I believe it was in there, but we didn't see it. We didn't see it after the first episode of the third season when it was introduced.
I'm trying to remember because I don't know if I've actually finished the third season.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get rid of Hulu because Hulu was being a bitch.
Uh-huh.
But I know I saw it. I know I saw it in one of the battle scenes. If it's what you're referring to, then that might be what I'm referring to. What I'm referring to.
Yeah. I'll look it up. It was like it had a pointy end. It was almost like an arrowhead. It looked really. It was basically their version of the Delta Flyer, only even more aerodynamic. And yeah, they didn't revisit it, and it's like, okay, so that's an issue. It kind of reminds me of, if you've ever read the book by Stephen King, Salem's Lot. He spends an awful lot of time in the beginning of the novel, rather, talking about the rats that live in this junkyard outside of town. And he's clearly setting up for the rats to become involved in the story later on, but they never do. And the reason why, it's not because he's a bad writer, it's because the scene where he had a character get chewed to death by these rats was so graphic and so gruesome that his publisher actually said, we need to tone that down. Here, this is a horror novel by Stephen King, and an editor is telling him he's gone too far. So they changed that. They changed that character's death from being chewed to death by rats, eaten alive by rats, to him falling down a flight of stairs onto a booby trap, a homemade booby trap, where there's steak knives and things pointed up, and they basically get impaled on all these steak knives and things.
All right, is that what you're talking about?
Let me see. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, it was very slender. It was a one-man craft, and
I think they did play that in more than one episode.
According to the Orville Wiki, it was only in 2 episodes. Episode 3-1 Electric Sheep and episode 3-9 Domino.
What was the name of the vessel?
The Pterodon PT-197.
Pterodon PT-197. Yep. Okay. Let's take a look here. One person fighter vessel. Okay. And first appearance, Electric Sheep. And yeah, hold up. Yeah, there was a fleet of Pterodon class ships that were shown at the Battle of Draconis 42. So yeah, okay, I said corrected. I'm glad that that actually isn't a weak point of the season then, like I thought it was. I must have blinked and missed it. Mm-hmm.
When you brought up the fact that they show it off so much in that first episode, and even when I'm looking at here, it says it only shows up in one other episode of season 3. That seems kind of a waste, because they made a full scale model, they made a digital model.
Yep. Yeah. I think they were planning on using it in future seasons as well. I mean, that was the idea, I think. But what I kind of like about Orville is that they did do things assuming they would get another season, instead of like trying to wrap things up and then all of a sudden, oop, you got another season. Well, we got to unwrap everything. Like their cliffhanger between seasons 1 and 2. Was pretty gutsy to do that. If you don't know you're going to get in the second season, but. No, the thing I like about Orville was, given the state of Star Trek at the time the Orville debuted, a lot of people were looking for a Star Trek alternative that was enough like Star Trek the way it used to be, but still different. And I thought that the allegorical planetary union instead of Federation, and Union Fleet instead of Starfleet, I thought that was all very well done. And certainly the effects were top notch. We didn't get anything that was shitty. I like their version of New York in the future was interesting to me, where it had everything was organic. There were gardens on top of all the buildings. I just thought that was pretty cute. The one thing I didn't like about Orville, though, was the design of their ships. I did like that every ship in the fleet had basically the same shape, except they were just bigger, kind of like Birds of Prey, how they're all the same, but they're just bigger.
Yeah.
The propulsion system bothered me. When I originally saw it, I called it the labia drive, because it reminded me of a woman's labia. I stopped saying that after a while, but I mean, that was what I initially called it. And the fact that that there's no there's obstruction when you fly out of the aft shuttle bay. You have to make a hard, dorsal turn in order to not get hit or not hit the propulsion system. And yeah.
Okay, one of the things that bugged me was
Mhm.
because I was a nerd as a kid. One of the things I did was I created my own little Star Trek inspired universe. Okay, I posted it online, and all my ships were They were based on the design of a aluminum can pull ring. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
Okay, so that figure 8 design was what all my ships were based on.
Yeah.
Some of them had larger engine ring, like the little open tab at the back was supposed to be the engine ring, and the central area where it's connected to the main can was like where the warp, like the warp drive type thing is, fusion reactor, all that stuff.
Right.
And what pissed me off when I first saw it is I was like, they stole my designs because that was very much like how mine were, and it kind of made me upset. And then I read one of the articles, one of the early articles about the Orville, and they were like, yeah, we kind of designed these after pull ring tabs. And I was like, motherfucker, they even designed it after the same thing I did.
Yeah. No, I think every fan who has any creativity at all does that, where they create their own version of Starfleet. They call it something else. They'll try to have ships that you try to come up with a design that's as iconic as the Enterprise, and which is very hard to do. I mean, there's only so many shapes and combinations and things. I mean, but I had something similar where I had and actually what ended up happening was the character, what's his name, from Picard seasons 1 and 2, the guy captain of the La Sirena. He was a former Starfleet officer. Now he has a freighter or a transport or whatever. It was a character like that, where I had a former commanding officer of a ship in a Starfleet-like organization who now has a cruise ship kind of thing, where it's like a personnel transport and a cargo ship. And I had it. The concept that I came up with was that civilian craft have to travel along particle rivers, which is kind of like a riverboat, because I grew up on the Mississippi River. We have paddle wheels.
Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah, river boats, and the idea was that the Starfleet ships can just go wherever they want. They don't need rivers, but civilian craft have to ride these particle streams that go between systems, and that was the idea that he had this, and the idea was that the propulsion system looked like a paddle wheel on the back of a paddle wheeler ship, and totally ridiculous, but based on visuals, not based on hard science. And that was the idea, and they never took it anywhere. And then when Picard had the La Sirena and her captain, I'm like, shit. But it didn't matter. It was all conjecture.
I would.
Mine was where civilian craft in my world were all very boxy, and that was part of the design. Whereas the fleet ships were all these very round and not an angle anywhere type ships. Even the shuttlecrafts were more shaped like eggs.
Right.
Whereas civilian shuttlecraft were like these boxy things, 2-seaters. But even in my world, the shuttlecrafts had living quarters, because I imagine that sublight would still take days, if not weeks, to go just from Earth to Pluto.
Yeah.
So they're from Orc, egg-shaped craft. They're from Orc.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about space is you don't have to. If your craft is designed primarily to operate in space, it doesn't have to be aerodynamic, and you can use any shape you want. I mean, look at the Borg ships. I mean, cubes, right?
Well,
So yeah, go ahead.
But it was similar to how you had different modes of faster than light travel, and the reason that these were so rounded off was because when you're doing their version of FTL, those shapes were for that aerodynamic, not aerodynamics, but subspace dynamics.
Right.
Yeah, if you're heading toward the sun, you need to actually be dynamic to go against the wind.
Civilian craft didn't have the power to do those kind of that kind of FTL, so they could be any shape they needed to be. And a box is kind of like, you know, an easy shape to build. And that was the whole idea, is these were supposed to be mass-produced type ships. Even then, in my universe, the Gravity was produced by a single deck. So the largest civilian crafts were only 2 decks, where you'd basically walking right side up on deck 1, but deck 2 you were walking upside down because only that one deck provided gravity.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I really liked about the Orville, especially in the pilot, they don't come out and say it exactly, but they severely hint that the reason why Mercer got the job as captain, not just because his ex-wife recommended him, but also because they had this surplus of ships that they needed to man, and the idea that the contractor that builds their ships, they bought like an extra 1,000 of them, and so they had to fill these ships with captains and crews and things, and that's why he got, he's like a shore-based admin officer, who never got, we don't know if Marcher ever served on another ship prior, but he's one of those, he's what they call an admin officer, kind of like if you saw the episode The Deadly Years on the original series, where they were trying to transport that Commodore because he was going to take over a star base, and he'd never captained a ship before, but by rank he was supposed to take over, and he didn't know what he was doing. I don't know if you remember that at all.
Well, he did serve on 2 starships before, the Columbia and the Enterprise.
No, you're thinking of he's not talking about Matt Decker. He's not talking about Matt Decker.
I'm not talking about Matt Decker, no. Thanks for not contributing and trying to drive us off track.
Yeah, he's talking about the Starbase Commodore who took over
the Deadly
Enterprise, and he decides to cross the neutral zone, and then he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, no shit, you're an admin officer. You're not a line officer.
Kirk even called him that. He says he's a paper pusher. He's never commanded a fleet, a ship before, but he somehow thinks that it's okay for him to do it without the training and the experience. But yeah, it's a television, problem. You know what I mean? It's like nobody in the Navy would
ever
do that. It's a
like,
television
excuse
issue.
me, you're not. It's like, no, captain's not here. The XO's the captain.
Right.
And it's like, you're the Commodore.
Well, the problem in that episode though was that Spock was also under the effects of the age virus. There was no senior officer on board that really could reasonably take command, and that was the motivation. That guy just wanted to get to his post so he could take over and be in charge. He was basing his decision totally on his emotional need to be a big shot,
but that was the second episode where they Kirk pulls out the Corbinite maneuver, if I'm remembering correctly.
No, that was yeah. Oh yes, I'm sorry. That was the Corbin where he talks about Corbinite. It wasn't the Corbinite maneuver, but it was.
Yeah, it was the second time he pulled it off.
Yeah. He basically used the frequency that they knew that the Romulans had access to it to say that that he's going to self-destruct, and that part of space would not be habitable for 10 years or whatever, and they got the Romulans to back off because that's the kind of weapon that a Romulan would use.
I have seen it, but it's been a while. But when you start talking about it, I'm remembering more and more of the episode.
No, I know. I remember Deadly Years. That was and I mean, I remember why, because everybody. But once they got in, and he's like, Captain takes over, and it's like initiate overnight maneuver, and it was just like they're like, okay, we got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, they got him to retreat, But at first, you're wondering if he's back to normal because earlier in the episode, Kirk couldn't remember that the Romulans had already cracked, one particular Star Trek frequency or Starfleet frequency. So it was, there was some question there regarding his.
Oh yeah, he goes code 2.
Yeah.
Sir, code 2.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the purpose he did it, because he knew they broke the code, but they didn't know we knew that.
And
yeah, well, you didn't know what you didn't. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You didn't know what he was planning yet at that point. That's why it was sort of a little mini cliffhanger, mini stressor. There was, is he really cured yet? Is he really okay? But yeah.
What's funny is when I was a kid, even though the original series was on television all the time, I was renting the tapes from our local Hollywood Video, so I could watch them in order. And I remember watching that one at the end because of the Corbinite maneuver part. And as a kid, I was like, oh, he's pulling this out again. Why couldn't they come up with something new? As an adult, I watched that. I'm like, oh, he's calling back to something he already did. I like that now.
Yeah, continuity, basically.
Well, like he said, like Darren said, of course they would believe they would do it, because that's exactly what the Romulans did. Garrick said it best in that scene with Cisco. He goes, the more they deny it, the more the Romulans are going to be, because it's exactly what they would have done.
Right, exactly, yeah. Garrick actually understood the Romulans better than a lot of other characters in Star Trek, because we found out at one point that he was a gardener on Romulus that was responsible, and it's heavily hinted that he assassinated somebody on Romulus.
Yeah, he was just a gardener, a plain simple gardener, nothing else.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I really liked about Garrick was when he sees Gillian Bashir's fantasy about being a spy in mid-60s America, right? He's looking at it and goes, you're a spy and you're dressed like that? He goes, it's like, yeah, I'm a jet setter. I pose as a playboy. He goes, you're trying to be a spy and you're posing as a playboy? No. You need to be looking like somebody that nobody would think twice about. Like a plumber or something like that. That's he was pointing out, he's poking the holes in the genre of spy fantasy from the mid-century, and of course that's what he would do, because that's what he experienced. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, it's like it's like if you're going to do that, you become the person nobody expects. Nobody even notices. In fact, the key part is you shouldn't even be noticed.
I complete one task, and of course, it's immediately replaced by another deliver one baby dweller, which I can't get rid of until next time I play. Because I'm not doing the babies in this vault because it's just too much stuff about it. I just wanted to point that out. That is once again.
I thought the vault was buried in the southern of Alabama.
Nope.
Hey, Darren, I always thought it was funny when Bashir tried to tell him the story of the Boyaquad wolf. He's like, well, you see, the point is when you lie so much, people stop believing you. No, the point is you never tell the same lie over and over again.
Right, yeah. The moral of the story is different for Cardassians. Yeah, I remember.
That is a good story when you tell it like that, and a different culture gets a different moral from it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the Orville had a scene like that too, where they went to see. They took the I can't remember the name of the race that are hurt by light. They take them to see the Broadway musical Annie, and The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow has had a totally different connotation for them. And they, even though she's singing it happy, it's like the song of dread for them.
Yeah, you can see they're very uncomfortable about talking about the sun.
Yeah.
And he's like, he mentioned that, and he's like, yeah, Oklahoma would have probably been a better idea.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, it was a real nice part on the cultural thing. That was what I loved about the interactions with having, like Quark, Ron, Garrick, and all that, the Bajorans. Yeah. You got to see outside the Federation and the different perspectives of the different cultures that were outside the Federation, and it was very, very different.
Deep Space Nine did it better. I mean,
that's what I meant. Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, and it wasn't always on the nose direct either. There was a line, just a simple straight line that I loved. It was in The Way of the Warrior was the episode, and it was the episode where a Klingon ship had stopped the freighter Zoza. That's Cassidy Yates's freighter, and so Sisko goes out there with his fucking pimp hand to see what's going on, and he's talking to the Klingon captain, and it's like we're searching this vessel for signs of changeling activity. He goes, "Do you have any evidence?" He goes, and the Klingon looks at him and goes, "How can we have evidence if we don't conduct our tests?" And it's like, yeah, I get it, right? But there's a value difference here. You can't search them. You have to have evidence to be able to search them, but that's what a search is for, is to look for evidence. And so the Klingons had a very different, look at that freedom. And I loved that, because the Klingon captain is like practically telling Sisko he's an idiot with his tone. It's like, well, if we had evidence, we wouldn't be conducting a search. We'd be killing them,
Yeah, exactly.
Which, from a certain point of view, makes entirely good sense.
Yes, it does.
Right.
But from an American point of view, where you need a warrant first, and to get a warrant, you need some sort of evidence to begin with. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was just, it was one of my favorite little Klingon lines, because it's like the simplicity of it and the directness of it were so great,
Well, you have, especially at the end of the war, where you have Martog, Sisko, and the Admiral there, and, he's all happy. He's like, "Gentlemen, these are Cardassian bodies." And, they dump the wine out, and he's just like, "Humans."
Yeah. Yeah.
He's
who
like,
can understand them. Yeah. The translation is humans who can understand them. And, and the thing was, I kind of get Martok's point of view, because they all promised to have a drink of victory on Cardassia when they got there. And Sisko doesn't want to, have a toast over the bodies of dead people. And, basically Martok's got a boner for this situation. And the other two guys are like, "Nah, we're not doing this," but it was, it was a great, a great
cultural difference.
Cultural thing. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because his idea, they thought the idea of drinking a toast was in a bar, maybe somewhere like that. But no, to them, it's drinking blood wine over the bodies of their enemies.
Right. They're slain.
Well, remember, it also defeated it once the Cardassians kind of joined them on their side, because that's why they were hesitant. It wasn't necessarily because.
Yeah.
If the
Cardassians switch sides,
Yeah.
Klingons don't exactly look at that favorably, as far as they're concerned.
There were dead Jem'Hadar there too. But Martok made a point to say these are Cardassians lying dead at your feet. The Bajorans would call this poetic justice.
Yeah.
And of course Sisko, being not a Bajoran, but part of the Bajoran faith as the emissary, that was, it was an interesting little collision of ideas. But yeah, the fact, the moment when the Cardassians switch sides in the middle of the final fight is one of my favorite moments in Star Trek, because I used to hate the Cardassian ships, the Galler class ships. I thought they looked stupid. I thought they looked, weak for some reason. But then when they show them, they start when the Cardassians switch sides, and they actually film this one Cardassian Galler class ship heroically. They shoot it from below, looking up at it while it's firing on Jem'Hadar's ships. They're like, "Oh, I get it now." All of a sudden they go from being these drab. They look like cobras in space, kind of. They got that. And they got that weird orange tan. Now they look like they're made out of gold. Like they're all of a sudden, okay, now they look like good guy ships to me just because they switched sides. That was an interesting choice. I thought that was.
Well, actually, I'm going to say this. They didn't switch sides. The people they aligned to betrayed them, and were going to annihilate all of them.
Right. Yes, I know, but that's literally a line from the episode. They switched sides, and it's because the female changeling recklessly ordered the slaughter of all the Cardassians on Cardassia Prime, and when the rest of the Cardassian fleet heard about that, then they're like, "Okay, we're done," and they started targeting all the Breen ships.
Your description of, you know, now looking at it as a hero ship reminded me of that episode when Bashir is the changeling and he's going to destroy the station by blowing up the sun.
Yeah.
Where just before that, a fleet of Didirodeks show up.
Right.
And, you know, they have that bird motif. And as soon as I saw that, even though it was before the Lord of the Rings movie came out, I had that the Army of the Eagles showing up.
Exactly.
From The Hobbit. And to me, that was similar in, you know, feeling of, oh, these are now the good guys. They're coming to our rescue on wings of a feather, you know. It was, you know, it's interesting when they do stuff like that, because it gives you a menacing ship, and suddenly now it's not as menacing.
Right. It's kind of like how for years and years we saw the USS Reliant as a villain ship because of Wrath of Khan, but then later in TNG they would actually show, you know, the same class ship, but it's on our side now, and it actually looks like a good guy ship. You know, it's just the personality of whoever's in charge of the ship kind of transfers to that shape. But I mean, the Reliant was actually a really good villain ship because it was like the opposite of the Enterprise. It had underslung nacelles. We recognized a lot of the armaments it had and technology and stuff like that, but it was just, you know, you couldn't mistake it for the Enterprise. And then later on, I think when they had the Dominion War, and you saw all these, you know, Miranda class ships, you know, getting pulverized, and you're feeling sorry for them. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah, but they were versatile ships. I mean, that's why they were still around.
Miranda is one of my favorite ships for that reason. They just seem to never go away. I think that there was even Miranda ships in Picard final season.
All right, Jordan, you're thinking of Lord of the Rings. I was thinking The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I mean, I actually, my favorite Cardassian character isn't Gul Dukat. It's Damar, because he showed this arc where he went from being basically just a 2-bit thug under Dukat to being, you know, the new, you know, leader of Cardassia and a drunk, and then he rose up to the challenge and he actually became heroic at the end, which was really hard to do because in a previous season he killed Dukat's daughter. And it was like cold blood. It's like, okay, this guy is never going to be anything other than a villain now, but they actually made me root for him.
When he killed
when he found out about, you know,
mad.
when he found out about his family being killed, and he's like, what kind of people kill women and children? And Kira just couldn't help but say it. Yeah.
Right.
Mar, what kind of people kill women and children? And
exactly.
And she goes, I shouldn't have said. He goes, no. He romanticizes about the old days. Sometimes he needs a touch of cold water.
That was one of the great little themes of that whole season with Damar in there, was the idea that, you know, and he even says it at the climax when he finally makes the full turn. He says his Cardassia is gone and it's not coming back, and he's actually pleased about that. You know, the Cardassians loved their homeland as anybody would, but they had to face the reality, you know, that they weren't, that it wasn't as great as they thought, especially when they faced with another tyranny, like the Dominion. You know, I mean, they were subjugated in their own land, and that was like Damar's speech that he gives, where he announces that basically he's going to fight the Dominion, is one of the best little moments in Star Trek, because, you know, we're seeing it through the eyes of Sisko and Cast on their main viewer, that basically, you know, Damar, you know, announces that he's attacking, you know, Dominion outposts and things, and it's like a big deal. It's one of the most important speeches in it, and he comes off heroically, and then he comes off even more heroically later on, and especially when he dies. You know, he dies trying to get Garrick and Kira into the headquarters on Cardassia where the female changeling is, so that they can force a settlement essentially. And
he ultimately is willing to die for it, and I mean,
he did. Yeah,
and he did have a very great story arc. I would agree.
Yeah. I mean, another great moment. It's actually Gul Dukat's one of his finest little moments is when he's already been disguised as a Bajoran. He's going to go undercover on Bajor, and he looks at this drunken, disheveled Damar and goes, "What happened to that brave officer I served with, a year ago, who stood at my side while we took on the entire Klingon fleet with a single ship?" And he's like, he's still in there, reach down and grab a hold of him, Damar. He gives him that little motivational pep talk. It's one of
what I loved about him. I think what I like about Damar is the fact that he wasn't supposed to be a big Cardassian, right? He was just like one of the crew members. Well, you know what? Cardassians, like, background actors of Cardassians suck. Nobody knows how to be a good Cardassian. Like, very few good Cardassians, unless you're like the fat ones were pretty good. But like to find a skinny, able Cardassian, they were just like sticks in the mud, like literal sticks walking around. But when Damar spoke, which is funny, this was my point of view, like it's almost like when he was talking on that first episode, like he didn't care about him acting. Like he just like, hey, his attitude, the way he came off, it was almost like he didn't even want to be there, and that worked. That freaking worked.
Grew. His character grew organically. At first, he was one of those background characters that had like 2 or 3 lines in an episode, and then they gave him they kept bringing him back and gave him a little more and a little more, and then eventually he was like a main player in the last season. It was kind of neat how that worked. On Deep Space Nine, they did that a lot.
He definitely made it work. I think after that first episode, his popularity skyrocketed. He nailed it.
No, they did it with Morn. Morn was like a central character, like Chef and
I think you're forgetting about the most important character that happened to, Miles O'Brien.
Right. Yeah. Right. He was a big one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, Worf
was
that kind of character too.
Yeah. Well, I remember when DS9 was premiering, or I was seeing the trailers, and I saw it was Miles O'Brien, and I was like, that's what hooked me on it right there. Because I like Miles O'Brien. Because I can relate to him.
I think that Cardassian, like, it's so true that it's hard to act as a good Cardassian. That when you did have a good Cardassian, they were freaking like great. Like, I mean, Garrick. I mean, they were not only good, but they were great. Dukat. I mean, even Tane or Mr. Four Lights. But
that was a fantastic episode.
Gul Madred, that was his name. Gul Madred, Mr. Four Lights.
Hey, who was the guy who was Garrick's father? Leggett?
Enabran Tane.
He was Enabran Tane. He did not have a rank. He had a name. Enabran Tane was his name.
No, Leggett is a title. It's not a rank.
Right, and the thing is that gets me about that is that the Cardassians, of course, up until that point, the big espionage, secret society kind of thing that we had been introduced to on TNG was the Tal Shiar over on the Romulan side, and Enabran Tane is like, the Tal Shiar are sloppy. It's like, and like the Cardassians are all big on organization and stuff, and so they catalog everything. And there was that one episode where they tried to convince Kira that she was actually a Cardassian, and they had an archive of evidence that they could just have them beam articles whatever here to this location, and literally they beam the corpse of Kira Nerys to them. And I thought that is an interesting because it's hard. You got Cardassians are sort of like a cross between Klingons in that they're a military culture, but they're not a warrior culture. There's a difference there. And then they also have their own espionage, which is actually based on, like I say, organization and rather than deception, kind of like the Romulans. So there's this weird middle ground between those two cultures, and yet distinctive from both of them. I thought that was really neat to do.
What was it? Odo said something along the lines. It goes, Obsidian Order. He goes, they are there. He goes, not even the Romulans' famed Tal Shiar is as good as them.
Yeah. And we always, I always got the impression that the Cardassian Union was a smaller
Section 31 was batting 1,000 though. At least that nobody even knew about them.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew about the
I don't think
but you didn't
anyone
know.
else here played this. Back in the day, I played the Star Trek customizable card game. And before Deep Space Nine, they originally only had the license for Next Generation. So all the Cardassian characters had this yellow background because they were part of the non-aligned factions. They weren't Klingon, they weren't Romulan, they weren't Federation.
Right.
They were non-aligned. And that meant that you could have non-aligned in any deck you wanted as an extra character. So I always thought it was funny because I ran this card in one of my decks all the time. And then, of course, they released Deep Space Nine, which has now Cardassians as their own faction. So you could still have these guys, but any of the Cardassians, they redid a lot of these cards in Cardassian colors later on. But when you were talking about Gol Madrid, I was like, I remember because I played that one.
Well, one of my... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things I want to see if it actually says it. Okay. If you look in the flavor text underneath where it says officer, a lot of the Cardassian cards used terms that are in this flavor text. So any Cardassian card that referenced a gull, like, you could attach to a gull or attach to the Obsidian Order, you could still play those cards for this particular card, even though it wasn't a Cardassian card. It was really... It was just one of those things that was kind of funny because of the way the card game evolved over the years.
Right. I loved Star Trek Adversaries. It was a free-to-play Star Trek card game that you could get on Steam, and they discontinued it just about when I was getting into it, and I was so upset about that because it had really, if all you care about is ships firing on each other, that card game was awesome because every time you played a card, the ship that the card represented would fire on one of the other ships, and it shut down. And I have no idea why it shut down. Maybe people weren't buying enough, spending enough money. I certainly wasn't spending any money on the game. I was using just the ships that because it was one of those free to play games where you could earn ships if you played long enough. So that's what I did. Yeah. And it shut down a couple of years ago now. But I remember there was this idiot who used to go on Salty Trekker's channel called Waspinator. I think it was King Waspinator or something was his name, and he had a sarcophagus ship from Discovery. And my favorite ship was the Enterprise era Bird of Prey, the Bird of Prey that has the humpback and the one gun that's bigger than the other on one wing. And I was able to beat him just barely by 1 point. And I sent him a message, you suck or whatever. And the captain that I had on the Bird of Prey was Seth MacFarlane's character from Enterprise. So it looked like Mercer had killed him from the Orville, had killed him on a Bird of Prey, an older Bird of Prey. I thought that was just I had a fun time with that.
Yeah, people forget that he was an ensign in the engineer room on Enterprise.
But he had no lines on the Enterprise. He only had a line when he was switched to Columbia.
Yeah, he did.
On Enterprise he had no lines.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. It was during yes, he did during the Xindi storyline in the third season. He said that he basically Tucker had touched something and got shocked, and he says, "I thought you said you depolarized this conduit." He goes, "I did. I tried. I did all of them," and that was his line. He had one line. That was it.
Okay, yeah, I thought he only spoke when he got transferred to Columbia.
He actually played two different characters. He played that one on Enterprise, and then for some reason he played this other character that Trip didn't know on next season on Columbia. So he actually played two characters on that show.
What? They swapped out characters before.
Yeah. But
I mean, come on. The guy who played Tuvok was in TNG as a villain.
Yeah, and also Star Trek Generations as a Starfleet officer. Yeah, a human Starfleet officer. We ain't found shit. Yeah.
No, that was Spaceballs.
Yes, that was Spaceballs. You're right. Yeah.
Found anything yet? How about you guys? We ain't found shit.
Yep.
Okay, so you're
Did they
finally
get
playing the game
Motormouth
again. Am I still
Jones in that
alive or
movie
what?
too?
What?
Motormouth Jones.
I said, "Oh, you're still playing the game, Vile Mike. Am I still alive?"
You mean Winslow?
Yes, both of your characters are still alive.
Okay.
Uh,
Am I super powerful?
one's
yet?
working in the water treatment plant, the other one's in the restaurant.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've decided for the time being, I'm only going to send out the nameless people to gather stuff. So in case they die, I don't care.
Just do me a favor. Just do me a huge favor. I appreciate the name and all, but like when I do get famous and big, can we drop the pickles?
No.
You don't like pickles?
On
What do you mean
this
famous
channel,
and big?
No.
I don't want
you mean-
people calling me Elon Pickles or some shit. You know what I mean?
Well, wait a minute now.
You're already big, dude.
You said famous and big. You mean famous?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm already big. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're a big guy. Always have been, it looks like.
I'd appreciate it.
It's all right.
all right. Sorry, I did a brief search on the Seth MacFarlane character from Enterprise.
Yeah.
And to go back to the customizable card game, because I played it, he did get his own card,
Yep.
and they gave him the first name of Stewart. So apparently, you could argue that his name is Stuart Rivers.
Well, Stewart is also a title for a for a job on the Enterprise NX-01 because Daniels was a steward.
But that's supposed to be his name, Stewart.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Probably a reference to Stewie from Family Guy.
Family Guy. That makes more sense. Yeah, you're right. That makes more
I figured
sense.
that. Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Definitely.
I want to see if I can pull up the card. Because while Memory Alpha does reference it, they don't have a link to the image of the card.
Fortunately, I can't really do Memory Alpha anymore. They're still trying to merge everything together.
Yeah. I don't like that about Memory Alpha either. It's been essentially corrupted.
Yeah, at least on at least on Wikipedia they have legends and canon.
Right.
So I mean, like, at least I can get the differences.
But I mean, there's no way that.
Yo.
What's the keyboard command to zoom out? Zoom out on a web browser. I can't remember.
Command minus.
I don't have command.
Oh, alt minus, whatever that is.
He's not using a Mac, you queer. Anyway.
I thought you knew it was. Yeah, it's not working.
Yep, that would be about right.
So large.
Actually, if I actually saw Tim Russ and asked him to do an autograph, I would ask him to put "We ain't found shit."
He signs that. You can meet him at his concert in LA. He gets free shows.
Yeah, just stay off of him on X.
Oh God, yeah, I left him a long time ago. He's a little.
Yeah.
It's kind of like listening to George Takei. It's just like, eh.
Yeah. At least George Takei is cool to listen to just because of the sound of his voice. But I mean,
oh my.
Yeah, his voice is so wonderfully deep, and one of the things I really liked. If you remember that show Heroes from like 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I remember it.
He played Hero's father, and his entire performance on that show, he didn't speak English at all. He spoke Japanese the whole time. I thought, I mean, that was talk about, even though I didn't know what he was saying directly, his emotes and his facial expressions, he sold it. I mean, I was very pleased with that.
Well, like you said, that was one of the things Rorschach had to do. He had to, because you couldn't see his facial expressions. You had to watch his body language.
Right, but you could see Takai's face, though. Yeah.
Yeah, you can still see his face.
Yeah. You can see Takai's
God, Heroes
face.
is another one of those shows where they did. We were talking earlier about how Seth and other places people have planned out their shows in advance, and Heroes was definitely not one of those shows.
No, especially after the strike.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, the first season is outstanding. Some of the best television ever made, and then after that, it just went.
Yeah,
they should have just stayed. They should have just left it season 1. I mean, after the strike, it went downhill.
Yeah. Well, what I would have done is leave it at season 1 and then continue it in a feature film.
I could see that happening. You could have had,
yeah, kind of like how Firefly was, right, where you had the first 12 episodes and then it was essentially continued or concluded in a feature film. Because with that first season ended, we didn't know the two brothers fly up into the sky and explode, and we didn't know what their status was. Siler was still on the loose, you know. I mean, Zachary Quinto at one point was the #1 villain on television with that character.
Yep. I remember, you know, too, the only reason I was even watching that show was because of Siler after a while.
Yep.
Yeah, what's his name? The guy that played the brother who could copy powers. I never really liked his actor. He was just, I don't know. Someone about the way he emoted was just
Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, he was a little too cool, and you know his career never really took off at that. I think after that, I saw him in Rocky Balboa playing Rocky's son, and then he was in a comedy with Andy Samberg and Adam Sandler, and then that was it. He didn't. I think he went back to either soap operas or just like romance television or whatever. You know, he didn't take off.
I like that Indian guy from the first season, the one who was basically doing the narration.
Oh, Hinder.
Yeah, Hinder. Yeah. Sorry, man, it's been a while.
Ali Larder in that was interesting, playing both versions of Jessica. And then she played a third person in that show. She ended up playing, I mean, she played the one woman that had a split personality where one of the personalities had superhuman strength. And then that character dies after she's cured. And then you find out that she had a cloned twin sister who had ice powers. And that was an interesting idea where they try to like bring the Boys of Brazil kind of idea into it, to say that, you know, not only are there these people who are born with powers, but they'll be cloned a whole bunch of them, and so, you know, different actors could come back. But I'll tell you, the one thing that I thought was really innovative about Heroes in the first season was the gangster Linderman that we'd heard about for like the first half of the series, and then they introduce him, and it's Malcolm McDowell, and his superpower is the ability to heal people. And you're thinking, well, what, you know, a supervillain and it doesn't have a, you know, it has a power that's not a very villainous power, right? But he uses it to gain people's loyalty. He goes into a hospital and says, you know, I'm going to fix your, you know, I'm going to, you know, have your your arms and legs grow back, but you're going to work for me for the rest of your life. And they take it, and you know that was insidious. I actually thought that was the brilliant idea, because in Heroes, everybody's power was the opposite of their personality on some level, right? You had the politician had the ability to fly. Now, the ability to fly is like the ultimate expression of freedom, yet he was tied down because he was running for office. You had the cop who could hear people's thoughts. You know, he's a cop, man of action, but his power is very passive. You know, DL, the ex-con who's trying to you know, live a straight and narrow life, but his power is the ability to walk through walls, which makes him the perfect thief, right? You know, there was just, you know, you had this idea where people were given powers that were in conflict, and Linderman, being a gangster, but had the power to heal people, like some kind of televangelist or something. That was
the first season was really, really great, but that's where it should have stayed. I mean, after the writer's strike, the quality never came back. A lot of shows, unfortunately. Oh my God!
I was looking at his career. Yeah. The guy that we're talking about, the protagonist of Heroes, Milo.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mispronounce this. Ventimiglia.
Yeah.
He apparently voiced Wolverine/Logan in the Iron Man and Wolverine animated films in the 2010 and 2011.
Oh, interesting.
and Blade.
Yeah. Well,
So it's
another
like-
breakout. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just amazed because I'm gonna have to go back and watch those because I don't see him as a Wolverine character.
Right. I another breakout character after that show that didn't go anywhere was that Hayden Pantera or whatever. She played the cheerleader. And I think the reason, I think the reason why is because she was just so short. She's like 4 foot even or something. She's like not very tall at all, and you know, and that means she could play a teenage girl forever, you know, basically. And I think that was the problem. They tried to turn her into like a sort of a sex symbol, but it just didn't work because of her height.
She was
cute.
in a rom-com. I'm not really a big fan of rom-coms all that much. I'm trying to see if I can pull up the name of it. It was Shanghai Kiss.
Okay.
Where she plays the love interest, but basically the story is not about her. It's about her. The main character is a Chinese guy living in the United States, and he inherits a house in Shanghai. And the whole thing is him traveling to Shanghai to rediscover his Chinese roots. And he basically discovers through mishap and everything that he's been Americanized too much. And even though he's a full-blooded Chinese person, he's looked down with and disdained by most of the people in the Chinese culture. And at the very end, he comes back and they hook up, essentially. But it's surprisingly, it was a good movie. I say it was a rom-com, but it's not really a comedy. It's barely a romance at all, but it's more of it's an interesting movie. I would definitely recommend it. Ignore the fact that she's on the cover. They only did that because it came out about the same time as Heroes.
Gotcha.
But I think it was filmed before she was a star. And she's only in like the first 10 minutes and the last 5 minutes.
Weird.
But yeah, I liked it. I liked it.
Yeah. There's certain actresses I can't stand, and she's not one of them. But yeah, if they put them on the jacket, I won't watch the movie.
Dude, you need a better vault door. They keep on breaking in.
Tessa Thompson. What's that?
Mike needs a better vault door. Those Raiders keep on breaking in.
Your mic is breaking in.
The whole point of this is that no matter how, if you upgrade the vault door, they're always going to break in. When you upgrade the vault door, it just gives you more time to set up. That's it.
Yeah. I usually get like 2 of my heaviest characters that I station them permanently at the entrance, and they can usually kill bandits themselves, so they never get past it. But Deathclaws and some roving ghouls, they can get past them. But yeah.
Oh, wow, an advanced lab coat. That's good.
Yeah.
And I think actually now that we had another Raider attack and I got another outfit, I'll give it. I think Mrs. Vile was here. No, Mrs. Vile's not here. Because
did you kill Mrs. Vile?
No, I don't know where she's at.
Hey, Mike, I'm gonna go get some lunch. Take care, guys.
Take care.
Alrighty, I'll be ending the stream soon. I'm just gonna
later.
Mrs. Vile, because of her job as a chemistry teacher, she actually has to, or she wears a lab coat. So I'm going to give her the lab coat and put her in the lab.
She says she's here.
Why would she need to wear a lab coat as a chemistry teacher?
I don't know if she has to, but she has one, and I like it. So I'm giving her the lab coat and I put her in the lab.
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I was just wondering. I
don't know if it's required by her job, but
yeah.
The lab coat also increases. I don't know why in the game, but it put someone in a lab coat, their intelligence automatically increases.
Right. Yeah. There's a video called "The Code of Credibility" where you have an actual study that was done where somebody was trying to convince somebody of a ridiculous thing, like, triceratopses are still alive in some parts of Africa, right? And they would come out and they would say this, and more people believed them after he put the white lab coat on, because that gave him some sort of subliminal credibility in the eyes of a lot of people.
All right, but I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream. Oh, she's still here.
All righty. All right, talk to you later, Vile.
Right, take it easy.
All right. What should I end
See
with?
everybody.
Sunshine.
All right.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
All right. I'll see you next week, folks.
All right, later, guys. Be good.
Later, weirdos.